I can't recall ever unwrapping a birthday present with my name on it, not once. When I was a child, I thought maybe they just couldn't afford it. I told myself that. Kids at school would talk about bikes and Barbies and game consoles, and I'd just smile and say, "We don't celebrate like that." They'd nod politely, but their eyes said they knew the truth. But then there was Ree. My younger sister arrived like a hurricane of pink, ribbons, and sparkles. Suddenly, gifts weren't a financial burden. She got something new for every birthday, holiday, report card, or even random Tuesday. I watched her unwrap dolls, tablets, new phones, shiny clothes, and even a puppy, while I sat in the corner, pretending I didn't care. Once, when I was 14, I asked Mom why I never got anything. She didn't look up from her magazine. She just said, "You were always the mature one. You never needed things to be happy." It was meant to sound like praise. It felt like a life sentence. Chapter 2. The house that broke the silence the day they gave Ree a $1 million house was the day I truly understood what I meant to them. I still remember the smell of fresh paint, the sound of champagne popping, and the way the string lights danced along the backyard fence. Ree twirled in the middle of her new marble kitchen like a princess. Mom was beaming, Dad looked proud. I stood at the edge of the room, plastic cup in hand, pretending the lukewarm punch tasted sweet. "She deserves it," I heard Mom say to a neighbor. "She's always been so special, and we wanted to do something meaningful for her wedding." I don't know what hit harder, the fact that they bought her a house, or that I was standing there, their other child, invisible as ever. Later that night, Ree caught up to me on the porch. "You're being quiet," she said, sipping her wine. I just smiled. "I'm proud of you." It wasn't a lie. I was proud of her, but I was no longer willing to pretend that everything was okay. That night, I cried, not out of jealousy, but from the ache of years of being the child no one celebrated. The realization that I was never forgotten. I was simply overlooked, deliberately. Chapter 3. My kind of revenge. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. I didn't cut ties. I simply disappeared into my own plans. I worked harder than I ever had. Took on 2 jobs, learned coding at night. I poured my pain into productivity. I started a small app that helped freelancers manage their time. Funny enough, it exploded. Years passed, my company grew. I became someone no one could ignore, except the people who had ignored me the longest. They never called, never asked how I was, and I never reached out either. Then came my moment. I bought a home, 3 times the size of Ree's. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I could. I decorated it quietly. No housewarming party. No spotlight, just peace. I started giving not to my family, but to people who reminded me of me. Kids who grew up being the responsible one, the independent one, the invisible one. I funded scholarships, opened internships, wrote letters of encouragement to strangers. One day, Ree's husband reached out. He was struggling, asked if I had any job openings. I did. I offered it. To him, he took it. I never mentioned his wife. Chapter 4. The gift I gave myself. It happened on a cold Tuesday. My phone lit up with a message from my mother. "We need to talk. It's urgent." I met them at a diner near their neighborhood. They looked older, tired. There were bags under Dad's eyes, and Mom's hands trembled around her coffee. They didn't ask how I'd been. They just told me Dad's health was declining. Their savings had dried up. Ree and her husband couldn't help too many expenses. Then came the ask, could I help them? Just a little. I looked at the 2 people who had taught me how to live without expecting anything. I thought about every birthday they forgot, every gift they never bought, every proud moment they dismissed. I thought about the $1 million house they gifted my sister while telling me I was fine on my own. I sipped my tea slowly. Then I said, "I was never taught how to receive or give. You always said I didn't need anything. Maybe you were right." Mom blinked, stunned. Dad looked away. "I'm sorry," I added, "but I learned from the best." I stood, left $1.20 on the table, and walked out. I didn't look back. Now, I live in quiet fulfillment. I built my life from the silence they gave me, and I use my voice to uplift others who were made to feel unworthy of love, celebration, or even a simple birthday gift. That was my sweetest revenge. Not anger, not cruelty, just success, peace. and finally belonging in a world I built for myself. I remember the day like it was yesterday, even though it's been years since then. It was a Saturday, bright and buzzing with excitement. My parents had invited all their friends, relatives, neighbors, everyone who mattered to them. The kind of gathering where the champagne flows and laughter is loud, and cameras flash so everyone can remember this special day forever. The house was stunning, huge with gleaming floors and crystal chandeliers that threw rainbows across the walls. A house that belonged to my sister. I stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching a plastic cup filled with some forgettable punch. I was supposed to smile, to be happy, to feel proud, but all I felt was a knot twisting tighter inside my chest. They had bought her $1 million house, $1 million. The price of that house was more than everything they ever spent on me, combined, during my entire childhood. I watched as my parents laughed with their faces glowing with pride and affection, the way they never once looked at me. It was like I was invisible, like I had no place in the celebration. The neighbors complimented her, asking about the new kitchen, the backyard, the master suite. Everyone wanted a tour, and basked in the spotlight. She looked so radiant, like she belonged, and I wondered bitterly why I didn't. During the party, I overheard snippets of conversation. My mother's voice floated past me as she spoke to a close family friend. "She's always been so special," Mom said. "We wanted to do something meaningful for her wedding. She deserves this, special." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Did I deserve anything? I thought. Did I ever? Later that evening, when the crowd had thinned and the noise had settled into soft murmurs, I stepped outside to the porch. The night air was crisp, and the stars were bright, indifferent to my pain. Found me there, swirling a glass of wine, eyes sparkling with happiness. "You're awfully quiet tonight," she said, tilting her head. "Is something wrong?" I wanted to tell her everything, the years of feeling left out, the silent ache of being forgotten. But I didn't. I simply smiled and said, "I'm proud of you." She smiled back, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She didn't understand, because how could she? How could anyone who was bathed in gifts and attention possibly understand the silent child who got nothing? That night I cried, not tears of jealousy but of grief, the grief of finally seeing the truth, that I was not just the overlooked sibling, I was the one they never celebrated. And in that pain, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. After that night, something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I realized revenge didn't have to be loud or angry. It could be something far sweeter, something that no one could take away. I chose silence, I chose success. I chose to build a life for myself so full and so complete that their neglect wouldn't matter anymore. I started small, took on every job I could find, waitressing during the day, coding classes at night. I remember how exhausting it was, how every muscle ached, but I kept going. Because for the first time, I was working not just to survive, but to thrive. I poured my loneliness and anger into something tangible. A simple app that helped freelancers organize their projects. It was nothing glamorous, but I believed in it. And slowly, word spread. 5 years later, that little app had grown into a company with dozens of employees and millions in revenue. I never flaunted my success, no flashy social media posts, no announcements, just quiet, steady growth. I never called my parents. They never called me. It didn't hurt anymore. I bought a home, not just any home, but a place where I could breathe. Bigger than the one my sister lived in, but I never invited them over. The silence between us had become a wall thicker than any brick. I started giving back, but not to them. I gave to others who reminded me of my younger self, the overlooked, the underestimated, the invisible kids who needed a hand. I funded scholarships, sponsored youth programs, and mentored young entrepreneurs. I even gave Ree's struggling husband a job when he reached out for help. I never mentioned his wife. Revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about reclaiming my power, and that power was mine alone. Years passed quietly. I lived my life on my terms, distant but not bitter, successful but not boastful. I had learned to give without expecting, to love without conditions, and most importantly, to find peace within myself. Then came the day my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Just one line, "We need to talk. It's urgent." I stared at it for a long time before replying. When we met at a small diner near their neighborhood, they looked different, older, vulnerable. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she held her coffee cup. My father's usually sharp gaze was dull, shadowed by exhaustion. They didn't ask how I'd been or where my life had taken me. Instead, they told me about their struggles, medical bills piling up, investments gone wrong, retirement plans unraveling. Ree and her husband were overwhelmed and unable to help. Then came the request, could I help, even just a little? I sat quietly, listening. It was surreal, the same people who had given me nothing now asking for everything. I thought about all the birthdays without presents, the silent nights when I cried myself to sleep, the years of feeling invisible. I thought about the $1,000,000 house gifted to my sister while I was told I didn't need anything. I took a deep breath and with calm resolve said, I was never taught how to receive or give. You always said I didn't need anything. Maybe you were right. My mother's eyes widened. My father looked away, unable to meet mine. I'm sorry, I added softly, but I learned from the best. I stood, placed a $20 bill on the table, and walked out. I didn't look back. Now I live with a peace that no gift or house could ever give me. I built my life from silence and neglect, but I gave myself the greatest gift of all, self-worth. I created scholarships for kids who feel invisible, who grow up wondering if they're enough, because I want them to know they are. My sweetest revenge was never in breaking them. It was in rising above, and in that rise I finally found myself.